as you're trying to come to terms with the whole subject of narcissism, trying to understand what it is, and then hopefully it's informing you in the way that you respond to the narcissist in your life, I think one of the conclusions you can start with is these people are pretty impressed with themselves. They want to hold themselves above you and let you know that you don't know what to do and you don't know how to handle life. So they need to set you straight and they need to make sure that you follow according to their dictates and mandates. But there's one very large problem that these individuals have that completely undermines whatever their narrative is, and it's this. Narcissists are enslaved by their own need to be in control. And it's a problem that's so prominent, it's so pervasive and thorough in their lives that it renders them very ineffective in the way that they manage relationships in the long run. And that's something you're going to need to be aware of and recognize. These people live in kind of like an addict does. If you can imagine an alcoholic who craves the alcohol, or a drug addict that craves the drug, the narcissist is somebody who craves control. It's not that they have controlling tendencies here and there. I mean, you and I each have controlling episodes that pop up from time to time, but that's not what makes narcissism. Narcissists are so drunk, if you will, on their need to be in control. They get so high on the craving to be in control that it takes over their lives. And because of that, enough is never enough. And it's like, I can't make myself stop. I just got to keep on being controlling. And then they rationalize and say, well, my way of life isn't bad like you might think it is. And so just like an addict begins to rationalize their behaviors and they're stuck in their behaviors, so it is with the narcissist. The narcissist is enslaved by this need for control because they're unable to see their own dark, false narrative. Way back when, somewhere along the way, they realized that being vulnerable and being open and letting people know who you really are was too risky. And so they developed this notion that says, I've got to make sure that I control the narrative. And so they go into this deep control, and it's based on a lot of falsehoods. They are fearful of being vulnerable. They're fearful of being known. They're fearful that you're going to think of themselves as inadequate. And based on their commitment to this false narrative and based on all of the other emotional garbage that goes with that, then there's where we come up with the idea that they have an enslavement. And I want you to just I'm going to go through quite a few things here that keep the narcissist in bondage, that renders them inept in many ways in the way they do life. For example, narcissists are enslaved or bound by their own stubbornness. They can't get away from it. They're bound by a closed system of thinking. They're bound by a stone cold heart. They're bound by their own patterns of deception. They're bound by their own anger and their chronic frustration. They're bound by their fears, as evidenced by chronic defensiveness. They're bound by the need to have the final word. It just means that life is closed-minded as far as they're concerned. They're bound by the need to always be right. They're enslaved by their commitment to a carefully crafted image. They have to look a certain way. They're bound by their own haughtiness, by their own smugness. They're bound by their inability to reason. They're bound by their inability to connect with people at the heart level. That doesn't sound like a good way to do life at all. Now, these people are actually owned by their own dysfunction. Do you understand that? And as a result, they think they're the ones that have life all figured out. And you look at those characteristics that I just mentioned, and it's like, wow, that's truly sad. And these people truly are enslaved by their own lack of insight and their own need to hold themselves above other individuals. And I'm hoping that as you see this, it's going to cause you to think, you know what? The last thing I need to do is get caught in a point-counterpoint way of life with them. Too many people who live with the narcissist will allow the narcissist to come out with all of their dysfunction, and they go into the game with them. And they play point, counterpoint, and you're angry at me, I'm angry at you. No, because that means you're enslaved or you're bound by their dysfunction. And there's another word, and I've mentioned this in other videos before, that you want to anchor down in, and that's the word freedom. A narcissist is not a free person. A narcissist, like I say, is enslaved, but would you consider what it would be like for you to not be enslaved by them? Would you consider what it means to be a free person? I'm going to give you some indicators of that, and you can look at this as being a much better alternative, a much different way of doing life. For example, a free person means that you're open-minded. Being free means that you don't have binary thinking, all or nothing, black or white, but you live in the gray area. You realize that life is nuanced. Just when you think you have a whole lot of things figured out, something comes along that says, let's think a little bit more fully about this. And free people can do that. Narcissists absolutely cannot. Freedom includes the ability to accept others for what they are and to be able to communicate that. What a wonderful way to live life. Freedom involves the willingness to listen, something a narcissist is unable to do. Freedom means that you're able to take delight in somebody else's unique experiences. Freedom means that you don't have to vie for position or status. Freedom means that you let go of the need to, quote, other people. Freedom involves the ability to cry when goodness shows up. You don't mind making yourself vulnerable at all. Freedom means that you have the ability to say, I blew it, or would you forgive me, or I'm hurting right now, or I need help. Freedom includes being able to show kindness and expecting absolutely nothing in return. Now, we go back to what I said just a few minutes ago, and that is the narcissist is crafting a false narrative. They must live with this notion that says, I can't let anybody see me sweat. I can't let anybody tell me that maybe my thoughts and feelings and interpretations are wrong. And so much about them is caught up in a manner of life that when you just break it down, just at a very elementary level, it makes no sense. And yet they're so deeply committed to it. So because the narcissist has this addictive need to be in control, they're not going to be able to experience life with healthy repercussions. They're going to wreak havoc. They're going to be the kind of individuals that make people around them miserable. So I want you to be able to acknowledge with no judgment or no harshness or condemnation, but just as a simple fact, narcissists are individuals who simply have not figured life out well at all. And what's worse is they're bound up by their own illogic, which leads us to one very large conclusion. And that is not a person that you want to take your cues in life from. They'll take you down the wrong path every single time. So I hope that you can see yourself as being one that says, I'm on to you. I see what's going on. I'm sorry on your behalf that you are addicted to these inappropriate ways of life. I can do better than that. So it means that psychologically and sometimes even physically, you may have to separate yourself off from them, just like sometimes you may have to separate yourself off from somebody who lives the life of an addict with other kinds of substances. These are not people that you want to have on your inner circle. Make sure that you see it so that you can then chart your own free way of life. Freedom means the privilege to choose. And I'm hoping that rather than being bound by them, which means that their enslavement becomes your enslavement, you'll be your own separate person. I think you're going to like it a whole lot better when you think that way. Now, I do hope that you find value in videos such as this. If you'll look beneath the video, you'll see the subscribe button. And if you would, I'd like for you to hit that subscribe button. We'd like to keep you aware of when other videos come along. In addition, we have links to books and online workshops, and then the availability of online counseling if that's something you need. And I'm hoping that you find those things to be helpful too. Just know that I'm privileged to be with you on your journey. I don't take my role in this lightly. Thank you for letting me be along, and I will see you next time.